Hey, what a surprise, Dad.
Hi.
How you doing? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing good. It's been fun.
Awesome, awesome. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time on a Wednesday afternoon. I'm not sure what time it is in your time zone, but it's 1 o'clock here. And come talk to us about some of the stuff that you guys are working on that was not discussed at the Speedy Meetup with the rest of the Growth Services team, and with well, specifically pertaining to that blog post that you published, which was pretty fascinating. But before we get into that, I want to hear about you. Tell us about Dan Gayle.
I work at Shopify. I'm on the Growth Services web performance team. We focus a lot on helping merchants get the most performance out of their stores. So we kind of dabble in a bunch of different things. We're available for hire, so merchants will hire us to fix their site, or we can do audits, or some of the things that we also do is try to contribute back to the platform, so that all of the sites across Shopify can get boosted in performance. We also work as internal consultants for other teams that are working on performance things. Honestly, I'm flabbergasted at the level of talent that I'm around. Sometimes I'm the newest and I'm the lowest one on the totem pole. I thought it was good until I came here, and then I realized way down on the list. So it's a really great team to work with, who they really know their stuff. That Speedy thing that we had before, when I was watching those presentations, I was like, wow.
Yeah, yeah. The Speedy Meetup. It was really good, definitely. Yeah. Now, so you joined Shopify, but prior to that, you were also working on performance.
Yeah. So I've been with Shopify since January. Prior to that, I worked for a large e-commerce retailer as their in-house web performance person. I think I was there like 4 years or so. That was the first official web performance job that I've done, but I've been building websites since the 90s as a kid, and web performance has always been the one thing that I think a lot of engineers like to work on, a lot of developers like to work on, but we're not often given the go ahead to specialize in it, just because it's kind of a niche thing to get into. So I've had to dabble in it. I've had to learn, through the school of hard knocks on, what works and what doesn't work. But ultimately, I think my background, I used to do technical SEO. I used to build themes for WordPress. I used to work as at a daily newspaper, having to deal with all of the advertising and everything. I had to rewrite the ad stack to be asynchronous. There's a lot of different things, and most of the time, it really just comes down to how can we simplify things, how can we make things less cumbersome and stop trying to be clever. So I like web performance because it's right there. It's like that's most of what we do is like, hey, stop doing that thing and do this the way the spec says to do, or the way that the browsers do it. And a lot of times you'll just end up being better. So.
Absolutely. Now, I know you mentioned that you'd spent 4 years at this big retailer. Are you actually able to sort of name this retailer, or is that sort of like?
Yeah, I could say it. I work for now I can remember. It's a long ago, 6 months ago. I was a lead developer for Crate and Barrel. I was the web performance team, essentially, but working hand in hand with all of the other teams. So learning how to negotiate the politics of a large corporate, team. All of these agile teams, they all have different priorities, and then just trying to help teams understand the importance of performance and getting that on their roadmaps, and showing the real value of performance versus some of the other things that we could have been working on.
Absolutely. Now, with that sort of like situation that you described, and moving to something like Shopify or a company like Shopify, as you described, you're suddenly around a bunch more people who have performance, or who are performance minded, from the get-go who have a lot of experience. What was that transition like?
I mean, to be honest, like 6 months in, or it's June now, like 6 months in, it's still interesting. Before I was the expert. Now I'm just like a guy.
You're
Like,
part of a bigger team.
it's very much different working as an internal web performance person versus somebody who's working directly with merchants, who's having to teach people other things outside of your company and having to work with their workflows and these sorts of things. So it's a transition. It's a good transition. I'm really enjoying it, and I think Shopify is a really great place for that, because the culture. I mean, all the way from the top, the CEO, he says things have to be fast.
Yeah.
I think he shared the quote that he had about, good software.
Oh yeah.
Whatever it is, good software is always fast or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll dig it up again and find it. But no, that's got to be great. And again, even within your team, you do have like so much expertise. Between, I know Yoav's not on the team, but he's had his like decades of experience working with browsers. Michael, coming from where he comes from, Estella, having done a lot of work over there in Spain, and Matt as well. I think at this point, I guess Matt would be a bit of the senior. Mateus, sorry,
Yeah.
I keep saying Matt, but Mateus would be, I guess a bit of the senior. So he's probably seen a lot in terms of the growth of e-commerce and the sort of the sort of the idea of paying attention to performance and getting these store owners to also, the literacy, to lift the literacy of these store owners and to have them understand performance beyond, what they may have seen or heard from like their friends or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I mean, the last thing I want to get into or ask before we get into the meat and potatoes today is you mentioned that you'd done a lot of work in SEO in the past. And moving to now, what are some of the lessons, say, from SEO that you may have taken to present day, or what kind of changes have you seen over the years?
So let me preface this by saying, when I started out doing SEO, I was working for a payday loan company, and we did terrible things to the internet. We did I mean, I'm not proud of it, but I learned a lot. Eventually I ended up quitting the job because it was like, you
couldn't sleep at night.
It was bad. I was like, we did some of the reasons why Google's terms of use exist are because of some of the things that we were doing. It was after that, actually, where I'd been part of a team that was doing such terrible things to the internet that I made it my own personal goal to penance to try to only focus on making the web better, because I have to use it. I work on the internet myself. So after that, I went into focusing on, content strategy. Like, instead of making garbage content, like, why are we actually making content? Why are we actually doing these things? Let's put high quality content out there. And then from there, like when I was working at the newspaper, we're like, hey, let's not just jam all these ads in front of people's eyeballs and make the experience terrible. How can we actually like lay them in so the page isn't shifting around and making everyone angry while still, satisfying the business requirements? So that's kind of like, there's been this penance going on in the background of my head ever since, like the late 2000s. Of like, let's just make the internet better. Let's focus on doing these things. Now, from a technical standpoint, it's a lot of it is still the same. It's let's build websites the right way. Let's build them cleanly. Let's build them in a way that's performant, that's accessible, that puts the information first. You're not hiding content. You're not doing all these things. Let's build them for people, because really that's the important thing is the people on the other end, because we all have to use the internet, and we all hate terrible experiences. So
Absolutely.
That's where I'm coming from. I have a dark past like that, but I think it informs where I try to go in the future.
Awesome, awesome. So we just witnessed a live mea culpa. Is that it? Something along those lines. Awesome. Well, that being said, you talked about making sure that people have good experiences, and obviously part of that sort of delivery of a good experience is making sure that shop owners, say in your case, are also able to build a storefront that provides that good experience. And again, I get back to the idea of this moment right now, because when you had published that blog post, which I read through, I was like, oh, I want to hear more details. Like, it's one thing to read a blog post, but I think it's also really important to have a conversation about the actual the content that was shared. So let's talk about this blog post. Like I said last week, I'm just going to hand over the keys. Bingo, and here we go.
So first of all, I want to acknowledge that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. I had nothing to do with actually building the back end or the front end or any of the pieces that go into this. There's a lot of people in Shopify who made this happen. I just happen to be the person on the growth services team who's trying to dig into it and see how we can actually use it. So kudos to the teams there. When the team released this, those of us on the growth services team were just like, wow, you guys went above and beyond in making things available. Just recently, last month or whenever it was, we've always had limited amount of real user data that was available to merchants that was in their admin, but you couldn't dive into it. You couldn't dig into it. We're collecting tons and tons of data on the back end from every single Shopify store, but this is the first time where we're really, really surfacing it for the store owners themselves to dig into it. And the entire piece about it with the Shopify QL, making that available, making the teams that build the dashboards and the actual components and all these things. It's really fascinating how something like this can come about. I want to also say that keep in mind that these performance reports, they're available to every single store owner who's on the platform. This is kind of a first, honestly, making like detailed RUM analytics available for anyone. Typically a RUM application or something is going to, it's not cheap. Usually it's not cheap because there's a lot of data requirements. There's a lot of things going on. And those services are great. Those are our good friends, people who run some of those services. But this is kind of unique in that it's available to even the starter plan on Shopify.
So basically, if I'm getting this right, I'm selling T-shirts, Henri's handsome tees, and just say I have like 10 SKUs, whatever. I can actually go in and look and use this dashboard, look at my RUM data and all the information, and have access to it for free.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. But this is really nice because it's granular even for like the small shops. When we started talking about like the new web performance reports, we kind of soft released them, and like it's part of like the big release. It was timed with all of the horizons and all that kind of stuff that we released, but it hasn't really gotten a whole lot of attention. So that's kind of one of the reasons we wanted to use it. A lot of people internally at Shopify don't even know that it exists. So we're trying to get some people to understand, this is something that's available to everyone. So these things are available. If you go into your Shopify store, you can go, there's a bunch of different ways here. And if you go to the link here, there's documentation and everything. They give you a couple of dashboards out of the box that are pretty handy. Like you can see your overall LCP scores and that sort of thing. Over time, this is pretty variable, because whatever the screenshot I came from didn't come from a whole lot of traffic. So it's, if you have more traffic, it's usually going to be a little bit flatter. But the really cool thing is that the Shopify QL allows us to run custom dashboards, to create custom reports that you can export. You can even export this as a CSV, so you can visualize it some other way if you need it. So we thought, what are some custom dashboards that would be useful for people to have that might not be something that comes right out of the box? One of the things the ones out of the box they don't necessarily do is they don't get down to like the important pages. This is like, across the whole site, but a lot of times we care about mostly the home page, the product pages, and collection pages, or the PDPs. So, the first thing we did was we created a dashboard. Does it give you, just a high level overview of LCP, CLS, and INP over those three page types, and then split by desktop and mobile. So just at a quick glance, you can see, collection pages on here, they need some work or whatever. And there's also percentage of traffic. It's only 4.5%, so maybe not to focus so much there.
Mm-hmm. So quick, just to step back very quickly, you have dashboards that are available, so anyone could log in and go through some of these dashboards. So from what it looks like, you have 6 sort of like basic dashboards that people can look at. Is that what I'm seeing there? Okay, perfect. I don't know if I want to jump into dashboards first or talk about ShopQL, or Shopify QL, which you just mentioned. I know we're not going to spend a ton of time just on the Shopify QL, but I thought this was something very much worth mentioning. For those out there who have, say, played around with HP Archive and or RUM Archive, that you can actually access a lot of the information that's been made available through I guess like BigQuery or something like that. But if your SQL game is amazing, that you can pull out so much of that information. And I thought that this was absolutely fascinating that Shopify would offer something along these lines, so you can actually really take a granular look at some of the information from your own store and figure out how important that is, or maybe not important, depending on the use case.
Yeah, there's a lot of documentation on the Shopify QL. It's pretty interesting, and long term I think there are things in the pipeline. But the really cool thing about this is that it doesn't. You can create a dashboard, but sometimes it's difficult to share it with somebody. With this, you can come in here, copy this, drop it into your own store, hit go, and then you will get the exact correct dashboard here. So let's say if I'm working with a merchant, I could say, hey, look, this is where you might have a problem. They don't just have to they don't have to just take my word for it. I can share them the actual thing, and they can drop it into their store and run it themselves and verify, oh yeah, look at this. And they can play with it too. It's pretty intuitive once you get into it, of the whole interface. On the right hand side, there's all of the different metrics, visualizations, dimensions. There's a lot of things there that they can dig into. But the shareable part of it is kind of thing that we're still investigating. How we've only just barely touched the beginning of this, because it's all still pretty brand new. So being able to create shareable dashboards that are agnostic really to the site itself, that was a very interesting thing. So that's why we kind of decided to hey, if we were going to use this ourselves, what would we build? And that's exactly what we've got here. Since I posted it, there's actually a couple of things that I might want to add on this. There's page level data as well, where you can actually get the URLs. I probably should have thought of that before I published the blog post, but sometimes you just got to get it out there. So when you copy, you can copy this, and everyone's welcome to come to the blog post and copy it and drop it in for themselves. That's what we're encouraging people to do. You just copy this, and you can see in the Shopify QL editor here, you just drop it in and hit run, and then you'll get the summaries down at the bottom.
So here's a quick question as well. It sounds like, from what you just mentioned, this was launched pretty much around the time you guys, the team, came to Toronto for Edition.dev, around Horizon.
About a week before, yeah.
Okay. And do you have any data on sort of, how it's been used, or how frequently it's been used? Because again, Shopify is such a massive platform, so many stores. I'm imagining the adoption rate. Have you kept an eye on that?
That's what the teams are watching for now. Right now, I asked that earlier today, if there's anything on the roadmap. And they said right now we're just in feedback mode of trying to, get as much feedback from merchants as possible on, how effective, how useful is this, that sort of thing. We think that it's super useful. We think that there's not enough people who know that it exists yet, which is, the impetus for writing a blog post to begin with, is to try to share it out. But yeah, it's something that they're monitoring right now, for sure.
Awesome. And again, this is probably going to require a little bit of literacy as usual. Not a huge deal, because SQL's not, once you sort of get the answers that you want, and you can sort of like digest it that way. But, is the team considering creating almost like a little recipe book? It's like, hey, if you want to look at this, just cut and paste this data, use this within your store, and then you should be able to get this kind of information.
That's kind of what we were thinking of with this. Now, I do want to step back. Like, you don't have to use the Shopify QL to do any of this stuff. It's all available through the interface, the admin here.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's the Shopify QL is a really cool additional feature that is on there that makes it extensible in some ways, but you're not required to use that. You can do it through the admin itself. I already showed you this one where it gives you the distributions and the P75 of these things, but we do have the time series graphs where you can actually see your web performance over time. This is split out the same way by mobile, desktop, and then collection, product, and index pages. If a merchant has a page, like if they use custom pages a lot, they could add those in there as well. It's pretty easy to do. We do just try to focus on the pages that have the most impact. So like there's this one where you can visualize it. It's a typical thing. Like in the blog post, we go over if you hover over the data points, it gives you a box showing some kind of stuff, how to use to select the different metrics that you want to look at. Right now, we don't have a way to show multiple visualizations. I think that's something like in the future roadmap of being able to do that. So right now you can only view LCP, CLS, IMP individually.
Got it.
The other thing that's really cool is that we do add annotations in the thing. So if you edit your shop theme, we add an annotation that says, hey, this was edited. And if like in this case, you could see that there was a thing. Hold on a moment.
That's amazing.
I love the home office. All right. You can see somebody made some modifications, and you could see it right on the timeline of, whatever this was. I think it's LCP. I think this was the next part, was the part that the growth services team was most surprised about, is that they didn't just give us the LCP numbers. They surfaced the LCP targets. So, this next dashboard helps us to, actually get the CSS selector for the LCP element where it is, which, that is super useful. Out of all of these things, this is probably one of the most useful things that they managed to surface for us. So, you can dig into it, and, on your collection mobile page, this is where I should expand this and have the page URLs available for a next dashboard, so you can actually see which pages it might be on. But if you know your pages, you can take that selector and just drop it in. I will say that Estella is working on this massive blog post series on how to effectively use CSS selectors and things in identifying web performance things on your page using Chrome DevTools and everything. Just massive blog posts. I think it's even broken down into a couple of different blog posts, because it's very intense.
So this essentially sounds like almost beyond just a dashboard. It seems like it's like a dashboard with some, with a dash of debugging.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually that's part of what we're really, really excited about with this, is that it does make it easier for us to dig in. So we have the selectors there. We can break it down. I really love this graph, these graphs here. So we break down LCP by TTFB, FCP, and LCP. So like, when you run this graph, you can break down your LCP and go, oh, obviously somebody did something here on the FCP level. So some like render blocking thing or whatever. Being able to see this kind of visualization, helps you to know where you should start debugging. Yeah, so that's the first two are just kind of like high level ones, but the last four are actually more for debugging, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you can identify. So that's what this one helps you identify. Like, are we on front end? We back end? What kind of thing are we looking for? The next one, CLS targets. We can surface the CLS targets on the page. CLS is always a fun one because the target isn't actually the thing that's doing the moving; it's the thing that was moved. But this is helpful that we can get that. In all of these here, we did link out to other more in-depth articles on how to debug Shopify liquid stuff. If it's on the back end, front end, or whatever. How can we optimize CLS once we have this selector? So this is useful, and we even have IMP targets, which IMP is still like one of the harder ones to actually debug. I don't really expect to have merchants digging into the IMP thing, but being able to see where it is, and if you have a developer on staff who's also in the admin, a developer can look at this and use it to debug what might be going on. Or if we share this table with them, if we share this and they just drop it in, they could share it and they can show us, what might be there. So I do want to follow up with a Shopify specific IMP kind of blog post about how we can do this, how we can fix this, because just like everybody else, I think most of us just go straight to web.dev and see what those guys have written. Mm-hmm. And it's great. It's great. So we do need to follow up on some of that. And then, I hope that, this is giving people, that this will give our stores and our merchants a lot more power to understand what's going on. When we get on a discovery call with a merchant, one of the very first questions we have with somebody is, why do you think you have a performance issue? Sometimes we'll get somebody who's like, hey, we have bad web performance. Okay, so why? What are you seeing that makes you believe that you have a web performance issue? Well, with these dashboards, we can take away that guesswork. We could take away that guesswork. They could say, hey, look, we have a bad LCP on collection pages, right? So that having that data right there is much better than just trying to have an opinion of it. Oh, I feel like it's slow, but you can actually like run your own performance report right there. And this is as part of the education. A lot of people are used to like Lighthouse scores, mm-hmm. or that sort of thing, which they serve their purpose a little bit, but this is the real user data from the people using your store. This is somebody who's trying to shop for your product. And then, you can kind of see where are they being held up. And if you wanted to improve your conversion rates on collection pages and you see that, all of my LCP scores on collection pages are red, then that immediately gives you something to work with. That immediately gives you a direction to, if you can't fix it yourself, to find a partner to fix it, or to, ask us to fix it for you or whatever. It at least gives you a direction that what's going on.
Simply because it is the, as we say in French, soup du jour. Have they approached you about potentially some automation, AI being involved in some of these sort of, solutions for them?
I don't know if I have heard of anything like that. I do know that we would like to make the Shopify storefronts have their Sidekick, their AI tool that they have in there. Mm-hmm. The long-term plans for the Sidekick in the admin are really tremendous from all of Shopify. We would love to be able to surface as much of this through that Sidekick as possible. That's kind of long term. We don't have any immediate work, boots on the ground working on that for specifically the performance thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that is definitely a long term goal for us. As far as a merchant wanting to build some AI tool on top of this web performance data, I don't have any.
Yeah. And, I asked simply because I know that the Shopify CEO, Toby, has been very much bullish on all things AI.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I would imagine that at some point, his influence, let alone, what's going on out in the outside world, that he might want to see, or there might be some initiative to have some of this done through AI. And it's like, hey, Shopee, can you tell me what's going on at the 75th percentile on my on my store in the Philippines, and something that's voiced in, and you get all the data back. Anyways, I'm just throwing that out there. But
I do think I do think that is something that we would all love to see working on. I'm particularly excited to work on the AI stuff. You're right. Internally, the entire company is very, very AI focused right now on making these tools available to merchants, making AI tools available to merchants, making the data that we have. We have a lot of data. There's a lot of data out there, and trying to make that more available for businesses to make smart decisions. That's definitely in our best interest. And the problem is that not everyone is, an analytics expert. So the smarter we can make our Sidekick tools and other AI tools to build on these things, that's definitely in our best interest long term.
Amazing. Well, dude, that was awesome. Thank you very much for sort of giving us a kind of a walkthrough and the little bits of details that may not have been on the actual blog post itself. Now, for those wondering, I shared the blog post link in the chat. Any closing remarks, sir?
I can't give away like the full details of it. Mateus is what is it? Not early hints. What was Mateus's talk?
Speculation rules.
Speculation rules. Yes, speculation rules have been rolled out to 100% of all Shopify users.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we have breaking news here.
Yeah. The results are pretty good.
Awesome. So
I can't tell you more than that because they're still compiling all of the results on that, but they're pretty good.
That being said, Dan, the man, thank you very much for your time. If someone wants to reach you, what should they do?
They should go to performance.shopify.com.
Okay. All right.
Or I'm on LinkedIn. I mostly quit most of the socials, so that's where you could find me.
And last but not least, I'm going to again mention a few things. This is the Speedy Stream where we just talk about the people, the performance, and the projects, big or small. Something like, these reports that are coming out of Shopify for store owners. So once again, if you have a project to share or a story to tell, please do let me know. You can find me in all socials at the following, at Henri Helvetica. Name the social, I'm probably on it. And the last thing I'm going to say is thank you very much for your time.